My name is Don Schenker, and I appreciate everyone coming to our session today on creating a flexible and usable industry-specific solution. So just by way of introduction, I'll spend the next hour with you guys. So that's me. I have an MBA and a Master's in Computer Science from Nova Southeastern down in Florida. If anyone doesn't know, it's a great place to go to college because it's right on the beach in Fort Lauderdale. Had a bunch of different positions that I worked through. Some big companies like Siemens and Ryder, some more interesting ones like the Sheriff's Office. I could talk about our mugshot system that we built, which was our first web-based system there. And then some healthcare, Cigna and United Healthcare. Currently, I work for a company called Synergistix. We founded the company about 20 years ago. We started the company as a consulting company working in Y2K transitions, moving from AS400 and old systems and Oracle form systems to modern systems at the time, what they called modern then, which was .NET. And other things. In 2004, we took a change and we focused on life science companies specifically, was where we are today. Real quick about my family, because I'm already 3 minutes late. That's myself, my amazing wife and 2 kids, Jackie and Liz. Which leads right into hobbies. Skiing, obviously one of our hot hobbies, which is really popular in Florida, as well as scuba diving. And when the weather's good, I like to drive Harley. We try to do a couple of cross-country rides every couple of years. Those are 2 employees of ours as well. So enough about me, let's talk about me a little bit more. Synergistix. So what Synergistix does, and people think we're a technology company because we build software. Reality is, and we tell our employees as well, is we are a service company. It's all about the solution and providing services to our customers, which are the pharmaceutical industry. Since they showed the mission of Sencha earlier, I figured I should do the same thing. So we try to drive the commercial success of life science companies by enabling to build customer relationship and highly effective sales teams. And it's important because that, combined with our vision, which I'm not going to read to you, and our core values, really is what drives our company and drives our software. And that's where the design starts. So it all starts with that piece of where our core values are and where we stand. We've also been blessed that we have a bunch of awards. Ironically, we built software for iPads, and Microsoft recognized us for the best enabling software. That was an interesting twist. We have some local trade rags that we've been recognized for, Inc. 5000 for fastest growing companies. And the bottom one, which I'm most proud of, is our Great Places to Work. Both last year and the year before, Sun Sentinel, local newspaper, as well as a nationally recognized Great Place to Work, recognize our company as one of the top places to work places. The reason for that is we have great employees, and great employees have great families, and we try to incorporate that all within our system. So a little bit about our solution before we get into the design, because I think it's important to understand kind of where we started from. So the system we built is called the CAT system. Stands for Customer Analysis and Targeting System. And for anyone that's familiar with the pharmaceutical industry, maybe it's been in the news a little bit lately. A couple of things about price gouging and other things like that. But it's an interesting group because it's the largest number of sales reps of any industry in the world. And they provide access to talking to doctors. It's very interesting because you hire reps that feel that they're an elite group. They don't want to do anything administrative. They don't want to do anything with technology. They feel that they own their doctor, they own the process. So anything you put in the way, they jump on and make it very challenging for you. So when we started the system, we built the first system in 2002. If anyone remembers these devices, these were CE devices, the Windows' first attempt at something mobile. Didn't go very well, so a year later we rebuilt it for tablet PCs and built tablet PCs instead, which became our version 2. This was highly built basically using Visual Basic back in the time. It was the state of the art in 2003. We relaunched the system in 2008 using .NET technology, again, focused on the PC and tablets. And then on November 3rd, 2010, I forgot the date on there, 2010, something interesting happened. Does anyone remember that date? It's a famous day, November 3rd? No. So it was the announcement of the iPad. And that's what happened on that date. And it really changed Synergistix because all of a sudden we had a whole new platform. We had to get away from the Windows Intel. We had to get away from designing on a really kind of rigid, thick client type of thing. It had to move it to a thin client. And in 2011, about 2 months later, we kicked off our project for CATS Mobile, which is where Sencha entered the story for us. So a little bit about CATS Mobile. We had 4 guides when we built this. Again, this is our 4th rewrite in a sense, because we had the first version, then the 2 rewrites. So our 4th rewrite. So we had things that we knew we had to do. We took away from the experience we had from the previous ones. 4 major system goals when we started the system. Easy to use. We knew it had to be touch-enabled because we had the iPads now. 1 click to get to anywhere so that the reps didn't have to go through things. And we needed to build a very intuitive GUI with very limited training. What we found out in our years prior to that is you start off, you say, the customer says, how much training do you need? We say, well, we need about a day, maybe a day and a half. They say, okay, great, you get 8 hours. Then 2 weeks before the training, they come back and say, well, there's a couple of new things we need to do. We're going to cut you down to 6 hours. And then you get on site and you wind up with 4. And at the time, wasn't enough to train, so we need to make it easy to train as we go through that. Secondarily, now that we took this little twist for the iPad and it was kind of a reactive, we said we don't want to be reactionary anymore. So the iPad's here today. We saw Androids were coming up on Windows when we thought Android tablets could be coming in. We knew Windows was going to come up with touchscreen technology that might actually work at some point, and which they finally did maybe. So we needed to know how to work for everything, even though we designed it primarily for the iPad. And we wanted to make sure it was smartphone compatible as it's going through. So we needed to support the multi-platform. We needed to make sure it was fully configurable. What we learned from our other systems is every pharmaceutical company, although they're very much the same, they're selling drugs, they're talking about their products and everything else, they all have very different ways they want to do it. So they all have fields they want to show, they want to be able to have different labels. They call it different, even just what they call the doctor. Doctors can be called doctors, they can be called practitioners, they can be called HCPs, they can be called prescribers. In some cases they're called customers. So we had to make sure that everything was fully flexible. So we designed the system to allow any label in the system to be configurable and changed, and any fields can be added or removed. So the system itself was a self-designing system in a sense. And then lastly, knowing that we were going to go international, we had to support multi-language currency and international zip codes as well, which was new for us during this rebuild. And the last part, being a regulated industry, compliance and security was real important. So the FDA is looking over everything. The federal regulations, CFR, Code of Federal Regulations, has a whole book called Part 11 that is all about electronic media, signature capture, and everything else that we had to use. We had to comply with that. And then there's different roles. You have different types of salespeople. You have salespeople that sell to the doctor that are kind of your standard sales reps. You have people that are called science liaisons that are talking to science. They have different rules of what they can do. Some can talk off-label, can talk about things, studies that are coming. Sales reps that are responsible for sales, that's illegal. Pfizer got a $2.4 million fine for that about 3 years ago. So real important stuff to make sure that doesn't happen. So we had to be able to have rules by security roles, and we had to have full audit controls. And the last one was most important. If you're in a hospital, you can't guarantee internet connectivity. So we had to be able to use a fully offline capable, where 90% of our functionality is available. We can work offline as well as online and make it transparent to the rep without them having to do anything or change or log in. And one more thing, we gave our developers 6 months to do it all. So it was a good luck. We have a couple of developers in the audience here. They're the ones that are not laughing. But at the end of the day, we look at 6 months later. So in the middle of 2011 rather, we launched the system. So we felt it was highly successful, extremely error-proof, very high level functionality. Our pilot group came out. They tested with 10 reps. Within a month, they rolled out their entire 150 rep sales force. So we had a large group immediately, and quickly that spread out to over 1,000 reps. So you guys are all wondering, how do we do that, right? So we bribed our programmers a lot. We fed them often. But there's a couple other things we did. There's really five key things that we saw that were really part of this, which was utilizing an agile development called SCRUM technology. We set clear requirements right up front, so we knew exactly what to expect and how we wanted to expect and how we wanted it to be built. Full support from the management team. So myself as the president and everyone that reported to me directly were highly involved in the all phases of the system. We utilize a graphic artist. I think someone said aesthetically challenged earlier today. Some programmers are. So ours are no exception. So the GUI and how we want to look, we took an external person that wasn't connected to the development to look at that and make sure we had standards that were defined for the GUI design. And we utilized our customers. So again, luckily we had a long-standing base. We had about 30 customers using our system at the time, most of them very engaged with our company. So we were able to go through that process. So to drill down on each of these a little bit, who here is familiar with SCRUM? You guys all work with SCRUM methodology? All right, good. I figured that, so I only have one slide, so I wouldn't bore you all with it. So most of you guys have it. But the real benefits of it was building features off of backlog. So we took all the features that we have, you put them in a long list of backlog, and you design and spec out the pieces that are about to be worked on. Everything else is in high level. And as you move up the backlog, you get more information. It allows us to set priorities quickly. Everything's broken down to 2-week sprints, and that gives us the ability to look at stuff and make sure we're on the right track. And you measure progress on a daily basis. And we review it every 6 weeks or so. The management team got together and looked at that and reviewed the successes. Clear benefits for business requirements was a huge benefit for us. And one of the big things we had was the fact that we already did this 3 times. We know everything we messed up, we know everything we did well. So we had most of the functionality already documented pretty well in the system. If you don't have that, you really need to sit down and kind of define that, in my opinion. Clearly defined standards and GUI standards and very clear goals as to when we need to deliver. When we planned this out, the 6-month mark was set because we had the first client had their national meeting where all the reps are going to be together from the country. They were all dispersed around the US. They were going to be in one spot. We knew the date 6 months in advance where we had to be, and there wasn't any moving that. The stakeholders looked at the standards of best practices, and our QC team was involved very early on in the process. So QC was involved from the beginning, starting with the scrums, and all the way through to the end, and that really helped us a lot. The management team support also very, very important. So at the end of each release cycle, what we called about every 6 weeks or 3 scrums, we met together. And one of the key things that we did is each developer demonstrated their portion and spoke about what they did. And I think that was a big piece of this because it allowed the buy-in, and the developers knew they had the ability to do that, and they knew they were expected to do that. The second thing is we were unapologetic in our feedback, both positive and negative. So we might have hurt some feelings every once in a while when you say this isn't right or this doesn't look right or we should do it this way. But although always respectful, we gave that evenly. And likewise, when things were good, we gave positive feedback as well from the management side. And then whenever there were changes from those review cycles, they were folded back in. So we always had room in our Scrum for rework and some extra piece that we can do very quickly to manage that piece of it. And the management team's support of all those processes, not pushing too hard, but keeping us on track, was a key piece of it. Graphic artist was the next piece, and again, as I mentioned, our team's not an exception. That the great developers don't always have the eye for the art of some of the screen designs, except for the 2 that I have in the audience. They're great, but the rest of them. But the graphic artist system palette was real important. So we set the colors. They happen to be Sencha common colors, but we didn't know that at the time. But we set the colors of the system. We had standardized icons, so we had to create our own suite of icons that we utilized. We created a look and feel that was consistent throughout the whole system. You can see kind of everyone, the home screen is always in the same spot, the same button on the top right is always in the same spot. So we had a certain amount of consistency. We implemented GUI standards throughout the whole system and consistency within objects. And all that was done because you had someone separated from the process that was able to do that and really put that all together for us. And then we also worked with a very clean design. Try to utilize a lot of white space or gray space as this screen might have, not trying to make things cluttered, and kind of utilize that feeling that we'd have within the system. And all thanks to the great third party we used for that. The last piece was the customer engagement. So what we did for customer engagement is we had a roundtable 3 times per year where we met with our customers, we brought our top clients in, reviewed with them what's on the backlog, what's in enhancements, showed off what we did so far, make sure we were on the right track. Again, we had our management team was in those rooms, as well as some of the developers and some of the QC folks. They can all hear that. And the most important part is we utilize that feedback in, so that when customers came back to the roundtable each time, they saw the feedback came in. We had customers say, "Oh, that's my feature over there. Oh, this is what I recommended," or "I see you didn't do what I told you was stupid." And we told them they were right. The customer's almost always right. So customer engagement was real important in our process. So that's how we got to that point. Some of the things I really want to talk about in the session today, and that was all the introduction, by the way, so now we're ready to get to the meat of it, was the design constraints and kind of thoughts. So first thing is, why do we use Sencha? Obviously, because we're here at a Sencha conference, they're a great partner of ours. Probably the most important reason was the Sencha's use of the unified framework. Allow us to build the systems to meet our requirements from both the desktop and mobile devices, both Android, iPads, and Windows tablets. Initially, we developed it for tablet devices, specifically the iPad, but we knew we wanted to expand it out and build it for others. And it did give us the performance we needed to build across the platforms, and it gave us a knowledge transfer. So in the past, our front-end folks and our back-end folks were using different languages, different programming techniques. They weren't really transferable. We couldn't move programmers around, and we were able to do that through that. The use of the VMC and MVVM architecture kind of helped us in being able to get our source code real well organized. So again, separating the platforms was real important for us, and utilization of common components, which again, working with our GUI, really helped us in that process as well for our testing and processes. Third one was the components, supporting our components. Leveraging the Sencha components met almost everything we needed within the system, and gave us the ability to have those components at our arsenal to utilize, plus being able to extend those components and rebuild on them and add to them functionality that we needed to make it work for us was a strong strength. And then one of the last ones is the support that Sencha offered. But there was mentioned this morning as well that utilizing the developer community was huge for us. Anytime we had a question, we put it out there, and the answers came back. The support forums were fantastic in supporting us and helping us with our questions, and hopefully we gave back as well in that area. Sencha Premium support was real important as well for us. So we know in a regulated environment, having dispersed customers throughout the US, when a problem occurred, we needed to get to it quickly, and we've more than once pulled upon the Sencha group to make sure that would work and help us with that. And then framework having just a great use of widgets and examples and user documentation allowed us to really get our feet off and running. But you all use Sencha, so you probably know that. And cross-browser compatibility and high quality were kind of the last things. So we did the evaluation back in 2010. We've never looked back from that. We don't regret that decision, and we're really happy with how it all came together. All right, so a little bit of the custom controls that we built. So again, we mentioned it before, we utilized the Sencha tool set quite extensively. A couple of things that we needed to add to the system and create capability. One of them was a multi-selector. So we needed the ability to be able to have a drop-down list and be able to select more than one item into the object, into the item, and build that in. And we utilize that throughout the system. We also created our own date picker that we utilized, again, from usability and usability within the system and for the reps to be able to pick a date and time very, very easily. And this is throughout our entire application, to be able to component that's utilized throughout everywhere as we go through it. The use of a carousel, so this was an object that we created. It's kind of an interesting story. I came off of a meeting with a customer, and a customer came to us and said, "Your system's great, I love everything, but that opening screen sucks," is what they told me. And we lost the sale because of it. The opening screen was kind of boring. It had a couple of menu items. And I went back to our head of development and I said, "We need a kick-ass opening screen." That was my exact words. So for the next month, the project was called the Kick-Ass Opening Screen. And this is what they came up with. And it came out to be really, really powerful for us. And since then, we've had customers' feedback that we caught them from the very beginning, opening the screen and utilizing something like this. The concept of the carousel allows us, again, going back to our one touch to anywhere. You can click anywhere on any of the icons, it'll automatically bring them forward and let them be seen there. It's also fully extensible as we add new objects or new apps to the system or external apps that can be called from any URL or schema. They can be added on as a menu or a submenu. Gives us a lot of power, so that was one of the system designs. We took the standard calendar, and augmented that as well to build things. So a little bit of an eye chart up there, but this is a list of all the doctors that you've either seen or are supposed to see. And you can drag and drop, as it's showing here, to look at the data. You can change the time. This is, again, an example of using our calendar item as well. But what was real important to some of our clients was the ability to suggest who to see next. So if you're in a certain area, everything in our system is geocoded, so we know where the addresses are. You can pick on a day and say, "Who do you suggest I see?" And the system will come back based on appointments, timing, or needs, who to see, and you can just drag and drop as you see here and put them onto the calendar. So we took the calendar that was available and we basically augmented it to our need, and again, a very strong feature that our clients really liked. Last piece of this, it shows the mapping capability. So it shows your appointments, where you're going. The blue was based on the current scheduled time. The red line that just changed to is the recommended time. So we have a little bot that runs by and says, to minimize your driving, you can do that as well. So that was our calendar object. And then being compliant, Part 11 was a requirement for signature capture. Our signature field was real important. So we created our signature box that again, has high-level compatibility, has some business rules, does checking on matches, minimum size, and other things that are part of the signature piece of it. And I showed it a little bit before, but geo-targeting is one of the key features. So besides the routing and showing appointments on the geo-target, you can take a map. It shows you your current location. We filmed this while we were in Philadelphia. It'll show you all the doctors and everybody that's within the system. And you can click on each of them. It pulls from the database using web services, and we'll find the doctors. If you have multiple locations, it'll show multiple doctors. You can add them to your calendar. You can enter a call right from here. You can access it. So it gave you full benefit of usability. And again, utilizing some of the internal tools. And you can see here, once again, our use of our calendar object. So those are kind of some of the system designs. The other thing we did is we created a lot of dynamic processes or custom processes. So this is now, I'm going back to our PC side. Whoops, I didn't want to quite start that yet. So the idea of the dynamic visual, I mentioned that earlier, was this is that you can draw and own screens, and basically it creates the screens for you on the fly. And you create it within the PC-based system, which is also done through Sencha. And then it will basically generate, and then when you launch it into the system, it'll work through, and basically everything you made, the changes will flow through. And when you see it here, you'll see it doesn't use the system settings as far as the graphics of those things. This is basically just the designer, and then it automatically applies those as a schema when it goes through here. So if we look through here, I'm opening up a screen. This is a basic name editing screen. I can go in here, and again, I apologize, a little bit of an eye chart up there. I can go in here, I can change the size, so this width of the sort order is going to be changed. And you'll see this line over here, no light. It makes it bigger, so you can change the size, you can change the defaults. Anything you can change in the controls are editable. I want to change the type, so I'm changing it from a label to a size. It'll change that as well. And all these things are done once we put them in here. And also whether they're hidden, whether they're read-only, all those features are in here. And it's also designed by each of the different groups. So in a second here, the video should show. So hiding, it shows that it disappears, and you can see it kind of in real time, and it shows it real on there. And then the last part of it, and it also has some rules. So you can basically put rules in as far as when things are shown, when things are not shown, what the defaults are, and it has a full set of validation as well. So if there's any errors or anything, you can also do that. So this is a key piece of our system because it allows us to launch and edit and change things very, very quickly. And I mentioned this is also by role. So in the second here, it should show you the different roles that we might have. So I can basically say if you're a home office user, it's hidden, but if you're not, it won't. So these are all the different roles or different types of people you can have. You can choose which ones have which business rules and set it accordingly based on each of the different roles that you might have out there. The other thing that's real important is the custom workflow. So custom workflow takes the forms that you create and then adds a workflow rules to it. So in the example here, I'm logged in as a manager. I did a ride along with the rep. I met him. I saw what the rep was doing, or her. I put in my information here so I can say Stacy is doing great. It pulls from the database, so it has some market share and some other data that's automatically generated on the fly for the manager so they can rate accordingly. And then you go out and you fill out the questionnaire. So he above average, meets expectations, whatever the rules are. Each of these forms are different for every single client, and it's based on their business rules, again, using our form designer. And you can notice the signature on the bottom as well. The rep or the manager simply signs it. And then they're going to submit. Once he submits here, what the system does, it automatically creates a message that goes out to the sales reps. So now I'm going to log in as a sales rep. You'll see a message pop up, and the rep's going to have their business rules, which might be to view some things, edit some things, or change some things. So here's a message pops up that says you have a field coaching report or FCR loaded. I pull it up, it pulls up the screen. This is everything that the manager used, and then the manager put in, rather. So Stacy reviews it, and then she has a chance to put her feedback on the back. Usually the first time around, they say, "You're such a jerk" to the manager. That doesn't go so well. They erase it. They put in something different. And then they submit it. Once you submit here, Workflow Engine will come back in and say, where does it go from here? So it could go back to the manager to review the comments, which is what we recommend so the reps don't get needlessly fired. Or it can go straight to HR, it can go to a manager, it can go to home office, it can go to any place it needs to go. But the workflow is throughout our whole system, so any process can be done there. We use it for contracts, we use it for rental approvals, we use it for demo approvals, even changes in customer masters and databases. All utilize workflow whenever you need to communicate between reps or users within the system. Okay. The other thing we did that was kind of neat in the system design was our synchronization. On our first two systems, we utilized the Microsoft replication process there within SQL Server. Our backend is all Microsoft, I should probably mention, so it's all SQL Server from a backend point of view. And that led to some challenges from when you have conflicts and other issues. So when we designed our synchronization mechanism, we did everything utilizing web services and XML to do it. So whenever data is changed, as long as you have an internet connection, it automatically sends up web service with the change and updates, and then it pulls down the updates as it refreshes the database. So we had a full synchronization that was designed, all utilizing our back-end database and support and services for that. And then I mentioned before, you have to be fairly seamless on online or offline. So if you notice here, I went into airplane mode. Items that you have to be online for turn off, and the items that are available turn on. That was a little quick, let me try it again. So I'm online, I lose my internet connection, all of a sudden it switches off. So geocoding and the mapping and things that need to be online for are going to be disabled automatically, seamless to the reps, and then it gets turned back on when you need to. And that's throughout the whole system. If there's fields or databases or graphs that are available in the cloud or on our servers, then those will be disabled throughout the system. And the last thing is the multi-language support. So the big thing that we had to change here was that. So in this quick demo example, I'm key that's going to be used throughout the thing. So everything in our system, because of the definitions, are defined as a key. So I have a key called product definition. The English is going to be definition, and then I just click on the translation. This utilizes Google Translation Services, and it'll translate it to all the language that I have set up in my system. So I can go through here and utilize that. And now some destination is in here. Not perfect, it's Google, so you have to always treat it with a thing, you want to change it. But it does give you the ability to do that, and then we can add every single label in our system, all roughly 14,000 labels or so are in the system. If you have multi-language, we have multi-language kits for most of the common languages, and they're all editable throughout the customers. Just to show what that does when you're in the system. So if I'm on the screen here and I'm showing the system, and I look at some things here, I look at my titles, I just go into my system log and change the language. So if I go from English to Spanish, you can see how quickly it just changes everything, and then every label throughout the system, everything the system uses, changes simultaneously. And this is across all platforms. So now everything will be in Spanish, and the multi-language support is real important for us. Okay, the last thing to talk about is just the back-end processes, because with our system specifically, it's so data intensive. Everything's really about the reliability of the data. So we did a lot. So to mention our DBA group that we have that manages the stuff, everything's about reliability of the data, checking, integration with external data sources to pull through what we need to do there. Managing our workflow, all those processes are all done through the back end, and identifying errors and tracking. Those are all really key important pieces to the system. So that's kind of where we got to on here. And so we talk about what's next for us as a company. We're continuing to develop off our backlog. We currently have 224 items. I said only 224. The developers all said, oh my God, 224. A little bit different there, but we have 35 that are high priority that are being currently worked on throughout the system. This is just on the front end tool, as well as we have our whole back end tool. We're building out our administration module, so all those changes that we showed on the back end are all going to be able to be moved and changed throughout the system to improve workflow. And we're working on deeper analytics, which I'm real excited about the new objects for the graphics and those things. So I think we'll be using those. So we're looking to enhance our queue-based data and artificial intelligence, scheduling and management of report generation. So I have some final thoughts, and I was going to actually go in and show the live system just to give you guys a little bit more and then answer any questions. I talked way faster than I thought I was going to on here. But so top five things for me, because 5 are really pretty easy. First thing to be successful is to build a great team. You want to make sure that you always have the best developers, the best DBAs, and we were really successful in doing that. We actively recruit, we treat our employees really, really well in order to ensure that and work on that. Secondarily is to find great partners. So Sencha has been one of our great partners. We also work very closely with Microsoft. We work very closely with Apple. We utilize all those groups to make sure that we have the best support and we can find the best solutions as quickly as possible. You want to be able to plan everything up front. So by putting some planning together and being able to design ahead of time, we eliminate a lot of the needs and rework and the issues that we would have otherwise within the system. And you want to be engaged and have your management engaged throughout the whole process. So again, real key piece to us is making sure that the stakeholders are involved and make sure that everyone's committed and really working through the system as you need to. And lastly is to be grateful. So we're thankful for Sencha, for their support. We're thankful for everyone, our customers, of course. But most importantly, I'm thankful for our employees because they really are what make it great for us and really help us in doing that. So last thing is make sure you enjoy your work. And that's really one of the keys to our success. We always try to have fun. We always try to make sure that it's enjoyable, fun, pleasant. And here's some things. This is company parties. We have laser tag. We have some racing, bowling, Thanksgiving thing going on here. And things scaring me. So there was a quote that I want to use. Says, "Work fills a great part of your life, and the only way to truly be satisfied is to believe you do great work, and the only way to do great work is to love what you do." So we try to establish that from our systems, and that's something that Steve Jobs said, early on in Apple, and certainly something that we live by. So I'm going to switch over to the live system, and I'll show some other parts of it, and also take on some questions as need be as we go through that. But first, I'm going to drop my microphone on the floor. So here's the base system, as I mentioned, to kind of show it as in a live view of this. Yeah, a lot of capability, a lot of flexibility within the system itself. Something I mentioned before, I really want to focus on is on our contacts, because the representatives are going to spend most of their time in the contacts. That's where we really the power of the system, as you can see here. So when you go through the system, the first thing you see is a listing of all the doctors that the reps calls on. These can be broken out by doctors, by hospitals, by any other groups you might have. So I can look at all my hospitals, I can look at just my HCPs or doctors, as I mentioned, go through here. There's some color coding. If you notice some of the doctors are in red, that signifies something specific. In this case, that means those doctors are ineligible for receiving samples, which is real important for us reps to know. And then on the right-hand side is our preview panel, which basically shows all the different pieces that we have on here. Everything in here is fully configurable and can be added or changed based on customer rules or based on user rules as well. So if I was to go in here, I can just click on the personalize and I can move things around. So if I want this graph is not that important to me, I can move that one down. If I want to see my scheduled calls, it's important, I can move that up. I go in here, I click done, and now when I look at this thing, it immediately changed. So utilizing our graphical capabilities and the GPS, we do have the mapping here, so it shows me this doctor's I'm here in Las Vegas, the doctor's in New Jersey. If I wanted to drive there from starting now, it'd be 1 day and 12 hours to get there, but probably faster to take a plane. I also know who they're affiliated with and where they're going to. And then for some reason, my system just froze. So let me show you how quickly you can reboot the system. As we go through here, what someone said about the demo gods. So you see how fast you log in. That's really a key thing of the system. So I'm going to go ahead and log in as a sales rep. And it's going to pull us up. Again, I mentioned before, we showed it in the demo, but I have some messages on here, so I could go back to my coaching report if I wanted to see that. I might have some other messages about inventory being shipped or received. All that stuff's part of our workflow as we go through it. So going back to our contacts list, and again, here we have it here. I can swipe through it, I can see the different information here. Part of our concept of the one touch to anything, we basically have on the right-hand panel is all of the different functions you can do for the doctor. Again, fully configurable, driven by the menus of the representatives. So if I'm on a particular doctor here and I want to simply view their profile, I just tap on the view profile, their profile will open up and I can see all the information that is applicable for this doctor as we go through the system. We also utilize some of the newer movements, so I can also just swipe to the right and open up the profile there as well. Those are things that are set as part of our more modern part of it. I can also do things like look at their sales data. If I had sales data on this doctor, I can pull that information up. Of course, we don't have any sales data for that person I picked. And I can go through the other parts of it. The key on the system as we go through it is to make sure that it's easy to access everything that we need to access. So I want to make a call on this doctor. I'm going to detail them, which is to make a call on them. I have a quick preview. It shows me everything that I did do or what I've seen. I swipe up and I can go through and choose products. I choose a lot number. I choose my quantity of how many samples I'm giving the doctors. These are free samples that a doctor might get. I simply tapped for the signature, and it flows up. I can take my signature, and I can save it. Again, utilizing our web services, this is already up on our cloud. We already have the data in there. So signatures are so important, those things get immediately uploaded into the system. Then I close out by saying what I spoke about. I can just go through and say, here's what I spoke about. The doctor responded this way, and I can follow up as I go through the system. And again, just real fast, easy way to get to the system. And it's all part of the design and part of the functionality. Likewise, I have advanced filtering in the system. I can do a Google type search where I go in here and just type in Barb, it'll search all fields. Or I can do a more independent search by filling in each of the individual search fields and look at just specific things, certain states, certain areas, certain places. Whoa. Now it's on. As we go through that part of it. So a lot of different ways and little different things on here. Probably the most important thing, which I didn't focus on, is our dashboards, and that's really where the strength and the configurability of the system might be. And if I open up my dashboards, it basically shows me, and this is part of what I'm real excited about, some of the new graphic capabilities, because I went to my developers after this morning's session, so we need to look at some of those new graphical capabilities. But even with these, I can go through page by page and look at all the different data. Picture, this is usually on an iPad, so Excel is a little bit challenging for that, so we have an Excel-like grid, as you all have seen, I'm sure. And we also can show multi-page or single page, and within our single page, we can go through very easily and flow through different graphs and different sessions and different signs. And that's really part of the key of how the system is, how simplistic it is to put the data in and how easy it is to show the information that we want to show. So that, in a nutshell, is kind of the system. It talks about the design, some of the other features we had. So glad to show more or answer any questions or anything else you guys might want to know. Yep.
Can you tell me a little about the offline capability? I mean, that's some of these iPads and things might not have as much storage. Is that footprint pretty big?
Yeah, so it's all definable. So it's a fairly large data set when you get to the regional and national level. In our case, a typical sales rep is going to have about 1,000 to 1,500 doctors. What we do to keep the size down and be careful with it is we select what's going to be online and offline. So when you're in offline mode, you might only have the main graph, one piece of data, which our biggest amount of data is in those graphs because it's sales by product, by individual, by month, so on and so forth when you multiply those out. So you'll choose as the customer, we'll say, what do you want to have based on the size you have? We can kind of pick that. But our average database size is not terribly big, 25 megabytes or so. Everything's pretty well compressed within the system. Yep. So the offline capability and as well as the synchronization that we did was all designed by us, and that was probably one of the key differences between our current system and the one we did last time. Because the last one we used replication services, where we didn't have as much flexibility. So when we have that, and we call the web service actually defines what's coming down, what the business rules are, and that web service basically looks and says, do I have an internet connection? If I do, go and pull everything off the web. If I don't, then pull it from the local store. So it has that logic all built into that synchronization. God, I knew this answer. You guys want to tell me was it web? Web SQL. Yeah, we started with this HTML store, but that proved a little challenging, so we switched over fairly recently to web SQL. Yep.
So you mentioned this role-based. Are you doing class training or is it data-driven?
So it's data-driven. So right. So every user has one or more roles. And then those roles determine what you can see, and we basically take an aggregate.
So how do you handle security then at the device if you've delivered all of it to the end user?
So the role actually, when you change roles, we're actually pulling the data set out. So if I switch users from myself to another one, I'm actually going to pull a data set off the server and then refresh it. And you're only pulling down those things that are applicable.
Okay, so what prevents anybody from hijacking that and putting in their own role? More access.
So all the roles are within the database, so it's kind of configurable in there. So to hack into that, you'd have to hack into the whole data store and actually create or change the roles.
So if it's a remote device, you just hack the message, or you can F12, you break the device, or.
I'm not sure.
I'm not trying to pin you down.
Right.
That's an important point.
Yeah, when so I guess I take a step back from there. So everything is sitting inside of a local application. So we have an iOS application, we have a Windows 10 application, and an Android application that comes down from the store. Everything. So we don't actually have an F12 functionality in the system. So I understand where he's going. So right, you can't never see the embedded HTML. You're never seeing the data stores that are coming through or any of the streams. It's all going through SSL security. I thought you were going to stop me. You're speaking next, right? Just wait. Okay. Payback. So, yes?
On your multi-language for field labels, what did you do with your tool in terms of handling different languages have large names for something that might be a shorter name?
Yeah, so the configurability is set at the role level. And so for places where we have really long names, we get into some trouble, especially like headers, because if a header obscures a button, it sometimes has trouble. So we kind of watch some of those, and sometimes the reason we didn't go with a direct translate automatically, which is what originally our design was that we can then start tweaking it. So if we find out there's an issue with a certain name or certain length, we can shorten it by using abbreviations or something else. But also we can say we have a German seems to be the longest names. We have a German role, and the German role is going to have fields in 2 rows instead of 1, or longer capability, or a smaller font. So you can control it by the role combination with the language. So that's probably the most common way, but we haven't really run into the issue because you're kind of reviewing them as you go through them, because otherwise you get into a lot of trouble. The translation has some really interesting translations from what I understood, and sometimes. So you have to be careful. So you want to review them anyway. The tool really just generate them quickly and get you a starting point. So a lot of times we'll try to abbreviate them. Yep.
The move to web SQL, can you elaborate on that decision since web SQL is deprecated?
I wasn't that close to it, honestly. You guys know, it's the DBAs. That's why I brought my teammates with me.
When trying to move it to the SQL Lite, the native mode, the data application basically from a native project. So we wrote like a kind of bridge to communicate the JavaScript code to the native code. So basically, this is the approach that we are trying to do. In that case, with SQL is the
Yeah.
right now in Windows devices, that application is different in Windows devices. Right now in Windows devices, we are using SQL. No way. Yeah, we're going to plan to either way use SQL or SQL device or SQL storage in any device.
Yeah. Which I guess which brings up an important point is the data level is totally obscured, so you can actually point to different sources based on the actual web calls that come out. So you can have a point to different database systems, different devices as you go through. Great. Thanks for the bailout. Yeah.
It looked like you had a natural language rules engine. What technology is that?
Yeah, it is, and it's using the Microsoft SQL as their natural language part within it. So we're utilizing that. It's part of the reporting services package.
Oh.
Yeah.
So when you're using SQLite native on the iPad, and are you doing things that just retrieve data, or you schedule appointments offline and then it syncs? I'm just curious if that syncing functionality is something you had to write, or if that's out-of-the-box functionality.
You know, we wrote the synchronous, yeah, we do sync, so we update locally and then we transmit up, and we wrote that ourselves. So it's using web services to send the messages up when there's changes, and when there's conflicts, the resolvers on the server side, and it's coming back. But that was all customly designed by us.
So I'm deciding whether or not that's something I can tackle. Huge job, not as bad as you think, but it sounds really well.
It was pretty big. I'm thinking back. It was one of the first things. So when we designed from our old Windows heavy system to this one, we knew right away one of the first requirements was we wanted to build our own and kind of get away from that. Because if we look back at the biggest issues we had prior to the new system was replication issues, where replication got jammed up. You had to reset somebody. You lose the data. If you ever had data get stuck on the system, we had to upload the database. You had to literally tear it apart, row by row, and rebuild everything. It was pain. So it was a pretty major part of it, and it took a big piece of the very first part of it. Again, it was under 6 months because it was in the first version, but it was pretty big. So our development team is about seven or eight folks on the development team, all in-house, so they're all based out of Sunrise, Florida. We also have a configuration group that handles all the configuration setting and updates, and a QC group of about 7 people as well. Our DBA group is a little bit bigger, I think, about 9 people on the DBA side, because a lot of the stuff we do is so data-centric and data-heavy. So the majority of our team is technical. Anything else I can tell you guys? I said I'm going to get thrown off the stage. They get me really nervous. They showed me the sign. It says, "Get off the stage." It's coming up in about 4 minutes. But oh, there we go. There he is on cue. 5 minutes.
Well, as much as you want to share about your signature, you're just capturing an image of that, storing in the database, or something.
Yep. So you're all friends. I'm good. So one of the things we did is it's just basically a capturing of a dot object. So it's looking at the pixels. It's capturing it as a signature. It's not biometric, so we're not looking at pressure or curvatures, which is not required by FDA rules for us. What is important though was to make sure we match the signature with the statement with the content all the time. So we actually do 2 pieces. We store the image separately so you can pull it up quickly. We also store an image of what they signed, the whole screen that they signed, which is an image, and that's pretty heavy. That goes up to the server immediately and it gets deleted locally, so we don't store any of that local. And then we store all the data pieces, including what the signature statement was, because you can change over time. You can change the configuration of a data statement or anything else. So all that stuff's stored, and we test reproducing it all the time because that's critical for our clients. But the box itself and the object, we took a standard graphics box where you takes the dot. We had to do a little bit with it because of the finger sensitivity, because you had to have finger, you had to have pen, you had to have mouse, because you can kind of sign on all three. So we had to do a little bit of work with that, and then we also did some error checking to make sure it was big. So we count the actual pixels, and the customer can say, you have to have at least 500 pixels in order to count it as a valid signature, so you don't have that mistake of a doctor just accidentally hitting their pinky across it and not really signing. So we have some extra controls in there as we built that. It is offline, because if you are offline, it'll capture the signature, capture the image, it'll store it in a temporary spot, and then upload it immediately. As soon as it's uploaded and confirmed, it gets removed. So it stores in the database. So we store it in the database, and then we remove it.
You're using a Canvas component for that?
Yeah. I looked at my support team. They said yes. Well, great. Well, I appreciate everybody coming again. Being the first session out of lunch, I'm glad everyone stayed awake. So that's a big win for me. That was my main goal. I'm going to be around the rest of the day today and part of tomorrow. So if there's any questions you can ask me, again, my teammates are here as well. And I thank you all for your attention.